Hey everyone, and welcome to an Auto Evolution video by AutoView. In this video, we look at Ferrari and their road cars starting in 1949 and ending at 1960. Sit back, enjoy, and take in some history of the prancing horse, starting with the Ferrari 166 Inter. With only 38 units produced, the 166 Inter was Ferrari's first true Grand Tourer and Ferrari's first 12-cylinder engine to reach 2-liter capacity. The 166 Inter was an evolution of the 125S and 166S racing cars. It was a sports car for the street. Next we have the Ferrari 195 Inter. Produced from 1950 to 1951, the 195 used a V12 engine designed by Gio Colombo. The relatively small V12 engine was capable of high RPM. The 195 was the same as the Ferrari 166 with an enlarged engine and wheelbase. Two models were offered, the 195S or the sport version, which offered slightly more horsepower and were bodied by Touring using pre-war Superleggera technique. From 1951 to 1952 Ferrari produced the 212 Inter. Alongside his successful competition cars, Enzo Ferrari sold detuned race cars for road-going clientele, and the 212 Inter was a classic example. It replaced the very similar Type 166 Inter and its race car brother, the 212 Export. When there was a short supply of Ferraris, the road-going Inters served double time and were converted into race cars. In 1951, the top of the range was represented by the 4.1-liter 340 America. Ferrari also sold the 212 chassis as a customer race car. It sold as the 212 Export and was produced alongside the 212 Inter, which was aimed towards the touring customer. Some cars with destinations within Europe but outside Italy were given Export Europa numbers, so they are described as Europa or Inter. In 1952, interest in Ferraris was growing among potential clients, but some were wary of the competition levels of performance provided by engines which reached the market with very little in the way of detuning. To meet the needs of this type of client, Ferrari introduced the 342 America, a softer four-seater featuring a more flexible engine, a new 4-speed gearbox and more user-friendly handling. In 1953 Ferrari had produced only 21 models of the 250 Europa as the replacement for the 212 Inter before the 250 Europa GT began production in 1954 to 1955. Ferrari heavily modified their 250 Europa to accept the new short-block Colombo V12. The 250 Europa GT was seen as a road-going version of the 250mm race car, and also as a second series to the 250 Europa. Despite having a near-identical body, the Ferrari Europa GT was much different under the skin compared to its predecessor. Ferrari's top model in 1953 was the 375 America, and it was reserved for their most important clientele. Each was custom-built and some were completely one-off designs. Like the 342 America it replaced, the 375 was based on a detuned version of the Lampredi Grand Prix engine in a typical tubular steel chassis. The majority of 375s had either 3 or 5 window coupe bodies built by Pininfarina. In 1955, Ferrari produced another line of America cars, beginning with the 1955 410 Super America. The engine, based on a single-plug 410S power plant, which was now up to a 5.0 liters with making 335 horsepower at 6,000 revolutions per minute. It was able to produce this power thanks to the triple Weber 40 DCF carburetors. As the most expensive Ferrari available, the 410 Super America replaced the 375 America after only 11 examples had been made. Ferrari was very serious about producing the 250 GT Coupe in large numbers in 1955 to 57. So much so, Pininfarina couldn't handle the expected production workload. Ferrari instead turned to Mario Felice Boano for production of both the bodies and interiors based on the Pininfarina design. Boano had a design house in Turin and a production plant in Brescia which could handle the large orders, which ended up being 65 units produced over the 2 years. After the first series of the 410 Super Americas, Ferrari updated the design with a shorter wheelbase for the 56 to 57 years. Only very few Series 2 cars were made before the Series 3 design came out at the 1958 Salone di Torino. Like the preceding 16 cars, the Series 2 belonged to Ferrari's flagship America series that offered the highest levels of sophistication. Although selling in smaller numbers compared to the coupes, Ferrari almost continually offered cabriolets for sale. Before 1959, these were almost always custom-made and the Series 1 was no exception. Costing $3,000 more than the California Spider, this model was aimed at the top end of the Grand Touring market. By comparison, many of the Series 1 cars usually had as many similarities as they did differences. For 58 to 59, the Series 3 that trailed the two earlier series was built as the ultimate Grand Tourer. Each car was custom ordered to receive unique bodies and many were made for auto shows or Ferrari's best clients. Power came from a potent version of the 4.9-liter engine that was a single-plug variant of the same Lamperti-designed engine that powered Ferrari's biggest and baddest race cars. In 1958, Pininfarina was ready with a new coupe design, as well as a new factory to increase body production. The Ferrari 250 GT Coupe Pininfarina would be the largest volume Ferrari model up to that time with 353 units produced from 58 to 60. The change from an artisan-type construction to a semi-industrialized type meant that the car's shape had to be designed with greater simplicity of body production. When Ferrari replaced their 250 Cabriolet Series 1 with a more luxurious Series 2 version, Luigi Chinetti convinced Ferrari to sell a sporting version of the 250 GT Cabriolet called the California Spider as a high-performance alternative. They were instead bodied by Scaglietti and some of the aluminum versions were periodically raced. This concludes the evolution of Ferrari from 1949 to 1960. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe for more evolution through the history of the automotive world.